Hello and welcome. There are educators who build schools, and then there are educators who redefine who gets to enter them. Our guest today belongs firmly to the second category. Jaspal Sidhu's understanding of education did not begin in a boardroom or a university seminar. It began with the humble beginnings of his father, who spent his working life providing his children the education that he never had. That lived experience appears to have shaped Jaspal's lifelong mission to ensure that a child's access to opportunity is not determined by parents' designation, income, geography, or social confidence. Trained as an engineer, Jaspal initially worked in mining and construction across Indonesia, but he eventually began engineering something far more consequential, an education model that attempted to combine international standards with affordability and scale. In 1996, he founded what became the Singapore Intercultural School Network, later expanding the mission through SIS and Inspirasi schools into major cities as well as smaller and emerging communities. His contribution is not merely that he opened schools, it is that he challenged one of education's most stubborn assumptions that excellence must necessarily be expensive. In different Indonesian cities, his schools brought international standard education to families at fee levels dramatically below those of conventional international schools. His work has subsequently received recognition from the Financial Times and the IFC of the World Bank Group for transformation in education. But his philosophy goes beyond buildings, curriculum, and examination results. It rests on the belief that great education begins with great human relationships. This shows in his approach of hiring teachers for attitude and developing them for excellence, which led to the research based effective framework developed with Deloitte Singapore, focusing on qualities such as earnestness, humor, firmness, enthusiasm, consistency, openness, and a research mindset. At a time when artificial intelligence is forcing us to reconsider what children should learn, when education inequality is widening, and when parents increasingly confuse high fees with high quality, Jaspal Sidhu's journey raises an important question. Can education be globally competitive, locally relevant, deeply humane, and genuinely affordable, all at the same time? Today we speak with a man who has spent nearly 3 decades trying to prove that it can. Jaspal, welcome to the show.
Nalin, thank you, and thank you for such a generous introduction. But as you were speaking, it just reminded me of my own journey. So thank you for allowing me to come onto such a prestigious podcast.
Thank you, Jaspal. You have given children the confidence to walk through doors that you yourself watched your family not having initially. How did those conversations shape the schools you build beyond affordability? So, to frame the question, what I would ask is the real purpose of education employment, knowledge, confidence, or just as an agency?
Well, the if you look at the history of how schools morphed at different times in the history of a particular country, education served a very different purpose. My time, it was jobs. Today, it is also jobs, but I say but because jobs are now going to be so difficult to find. It's competitive, technology is disrupting. And then you also have other factors that are now, I would say, in a way attacking or in a way pressing on the younger generation. So now the conversations are circling around well being, it's circling around 21st century skills, circling around human skills. So, to answer your question more succinctly, the school's role have changed today as compared to our times. And, and we strive to understand the challenges in external environment for our children And I think very often I have these conversations with the young to understand why are they in schools? What are they looking for in their life? And I think one of the things must be very careful as we as part of the older generation to tell the young that you have got to be more resilient because my time this and that and that. Nalin, our time was absolutely different. We didn't have uh, this whole concept of comparing oneself to another is enough to put pressure on every child. Our time, the only comparison I could do was with my brothers and my neighbors. Today, a child is sitting in the room as young as grade 6, grade 7. If he or she can get a smartphone, he or she is comparing her life or his life to someone so far away, and half of this could be filtered and untruths. So, schools need to understand this. School needs to partner with parents. My time, I don't think there was partnership with my parents. My father worked. What partnership was there? My father's like, show me exam results. That's it. Now we need to understand what's the pressure the children are going through at home and what's the pressures that they're going to face in life. And we try to bridge this in the past. It's a very complex education industry right now. And I think if schools don't understand this, they'll be doing gross injustice to the young.
That's very well put. But uh, the aspirational society, people who are now trying to aspire for a better life for their children in today's generation, there is an assumption that expensive education is actually better. You've challenged this assumption.
Yeah,
International quality education must carry international school prices.
yeah.
When you stripped away unnecessary costs, what did you discover parents are actually paying for? And
Yeah.
what are the few things schools must never compromise on, irrespective of their fee level?
So that's a very, very fundamental question that that has been asked over and over again. That sometimes I think school operators need to be extremely sincere. Why do you charge high fees? Okay, so let's look at that. First of all, schools survive on a very single revenue, which is school fees. Of course, if there are donations, etc., but put all that aside, school fees. Now, when you have pegged at a particular school fee price, there's an expectation for parents, what I call value for money. They would expect a curriculum which is fair, which is international. So let's start with that. Why should a school dilute the curriculum just because the fees are lower? Why give them a weak curriculum? It is unfair. And I tell you why they do it. They do it because they cannot find the appropriate teachers to execute that curriculum. So you might as well muddle the curriculum and put some average teacher and call yourself a school. And this is worse in small cities. So whether you are in a big city, small city, whether you are son of a conglomerate or son of a doorman, your right to a quality education has to be the same. The parents' aspiration is the same. So as you reduce price, two things changes. Infrastructure clearly has to shrink, and you need to hire more and more local teachers. And that's where the challenge is. Not so much infrastructure, quality of teachers to fit the price point that they are actually putting through. And that's something that we have studied for years and years. And that's something that we think we have cracked the code. And you alluded to that, the effector model, which I can talk a bit more later. But to answer your question, the working class has the same aspirations as those who are
Yeah.
business owners, etc.
So just to take that thought further, you spoke about teachers and how people muddle that part up and not getting the appropriate local teachers and a code that you have cracked. One of the amazing philosophies that you carry is to hire for attitude and train for skill.
Hmm, hmm.
Now, in an AI-enabled classroom, which qualities of a teacher will become more valuable and not less valuable? What I mean is, could technology eventually expose the difference between a teacher who merely delivers content and
Yeah,
one who genuinely changes lives?
yeah, yeah. So Nalin, one of the things for your listeners that I want to stress is when we keep talking about the quality of teachers in a school, let us not forget that formula is very similar to a quality of an employee in not in a school, in other industries. So when we were trying to crack the code as to when I was trying to raise funds to establish school in smaller cities, I knew they were going to ask me this question. Where are you going to find these great teachers in small cities? You told me the quality education is not so good, and you told me the problem is the teachers' exposure to international education. So why am I funding you? So we did this massive project with Deloitte. And I said to Deloitte, I want to understand these 24 companies, Google, Apple, Starbucks, how do they cut through developed countries to developing countries? What can I learn? So over a period of 18 months, we had some very intense discussions with the HR heads. There were many learnings, but one of the top learning was hire for attitude, train for skills. Now, we have then, through research, developed 8 different attributes, and each of them has research saying that if you have one of these qualities, your teacher will be able to make the all important connection with the students. Now, AI or technology is enabling a classroom. To do what, Nalin? To do what? The simplest thing is, the simplest answer, to allow the teacher to connect with the student so that the student will have a positive mindset change and there will be better student outcomes. Meaning, free the teacher from all the admin work, free the teacher from all the mundane work, and let the teacher spend more time with the students. Now, for the teacher to spend more time with the students, you can't have a grumpy teacher. I can free her all the time in the world, but she's got this real grumpy, no humor. What connection she's going to make with the students? So we've went through the research and we found these 8 qualities. Earnest is all about sincerity. Hey, why are you a teacher? Nalin, you and I know teachers are not highly paid. Okay, they're not highly paid compared to people from other industries. So when you look at this whole concept of earnest, it is once about during interview we'll say, why are you here? Your peer, if you were a teacher, Nalin, if you come in for an interview, one of the first things we'll ask you and say, Nalin, why are you here? Your peers in other industry are earning 20% more than you. But the fact that you're here says you're a very different person. You know, like the priests and the monks, why do they do what they do? Because they're so earnest. So teachers are super earnest individuals. Sincerity, we look for those qualities. Humor, the art of storytelling. No humor, you can put this on your podcast to everyone. No humor, don't be a teacher, be a police guard, policeman somewhere or police woman. Then there's firmness, the ability to control a class without screaming and shouting. Then there's enthusiasm. And we found out through data, the more enthusiastic or animated the teacher is, the better she is with technology. And consistency. Little children levitate to stability. Not one day a grumpy teacher, next day a good teacher. Consistency. Timeliness, feedback, open-minded, allowing one child to give his or her opinion, and research-minded. Teachers never have all the answers. If they're research minded, they'll find great ways of doing it. That's
This
the
is
model.
your effector model, right?
Correct.
So I
Correct.
just want to take it a little further.
Please
You
do.
spoke about student outcomes, and in the past, or even now in most schools, teachers are evaluated based on student outcomes or
Yeah.
examination results. But
Yeah.
should they not be evaluated on student trust, curiosity, confidence, and emotional engagement?
Good question. The question is, how do you get that data? How do you get the data that is fair? So we try different things. For example, students in our high school, they give feedback on the teachers. Now, if university students can give feedback on professors, why can't high school kids give feedback on their teachers? And we come up with a rubric, which is negotiated with the teachers anyway, as to these are the fundamental qualities we need to ensure that there is the student-teacher connection. In a way, a very happy classroom. As you get down, it becomes harder. As you get down, it becomes harder. But there are many other ways to spot this, and it largely comes from, like for example, in the preschool, We try to see how happy the students are by just every day before everything, every 1 week or 2 weeks before they go home, they'll pick several emojis, a smiley face, a grumpy face, and then we'll know what the mood of the classroom is to understand how happy the
Reminds
classroom
me of
is.
the Singapore airport
The
bathrooms.
bathrooms, yes, yes. And here's an interesting case. We actually picked up in one student putting a grumpy face, a frown, not a grumpy face, a frown over a period. And then we realized that this child was having a hard time at home.
Oh,
So we were able to intervene timely. So the point here is, how do you give voices to the students?
yeah. So I just want to pick on something because a lot of our young learners who are just starting out on careers are very fixated on I studied this, I will work in this area. Now,
It's not going to happen.
your career
Yeah,
started somewhere else. What when did the penny drop? Because this cannot be a business decision, right? This is
yeah, yeah,
quasi emotional impact, want to give back. And you
yeah,
must have been very young. We are speaking 30 years ago. What pushed
yeah,
you in this direction? What was the trigger?
yeah, yeah. So to be fair to the young, mine, it wasn't one day I woke up and say, I want to save the world. Nothing of that happened. It wasn't me looking at my father and say, oh, it was because of education, I'm going to change the world. No. My early life was to put food on the table. So I worked in the mining sector. 6 months after working in a coal mine, there was an accident. Me and another engineer fell in a river. My friend's body was never found. I was found with a broken spine. I have a lot of bolts and screws holding my spine up, by the way. And I ended up in a hospital in a remote town in West Sumatra. That was just 6 months after coming to Indonesia. Now, what had happened was, next to my hospital was a school, a local school, and I could always hear laughing kids. One day I looked out and I saw in front of the school a muddy patch of donkeys, bicycles, and a bullock cart. So that was their transport. That image stuck in my mind as a young man of a developed country seeing this. Fast forward, the company I worked for, and I thank God for it, we discovered one of the largest coal mines in Indonesia. That's where I made my money. And my kids ended up going to a top notch, Indonesia's most expensive international school where we paid fees at this level. And one day when I was there, I coached football in that school and I looked at the car park. I saw Mercedes Benzes, BMWs, and a Rolls Royce. That was that moment where I was thinking, hang on, doorman's son in such a high expensive school, and you remember what you saw many years ago. And I said, it's not fair. I need to equalize the odds. But being an engineer, and I'm not a philanthropist, I believe in sustainability. We came up with the half fees model, which I can talk about. And that started it. So it was a life experience. It was something I saw, mashed with my own personal experience of the importance of education.
That's a very, very powerful story. And, I just want to, I have known you for the last decade, little over 10 years when we first met, and I have observed your growth. And my next question is related to that. Many social enterprises, begin with a powerful mission. But as investors enter, organizations scale, affordability can gradually give way to margins.
Yeah.
You work with IFC, impact investors, institutional partners. How to protect the soul of an education mission while also building a financially sustainable organization?
I think that's a very fair question. I did a talk very recently in a forum called "What kind of investors do you need?" I think that's a very important question. So there are basically four different kinds of investors. One are the development banks, in this case, the World Bank, the IFC, the African Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank. Those help you kickstart, or even a family office, a venture capitalist, they help you kickstart your business. We are very lucky to have got the World Bank group involved. So those investors, what they did for me in the early years was to set best practices, governance, structures, international best practices. So that helped me understand in one day I'm going to raise international money from international investors. I better structure my business to win those people over. Now, this is something I always tell people. If you want to raise capital in the international market, then you structure your business both from a legal perspective and from a best governance perspective. I mean, you can't have uncle, auntie, mother in the company, right? In many schools, grandmother is supplying the canteen, sister is supplying the books. I mean, cut all that nonsense out, right? So that's one group. Then you have the private equity investors who are also currently my partners. To be fair, they need to come in and they need to exit within a period of 5 years. Going with your eyes wide open. There are PEs and there are PEs. There are PEs who are here because they believe education is a good business. They also feel it's a business that gives huge impact. So to the school owners, I always say, while people will do due diligence on you, please, you do due diligence on them as well.
True.
Pick the right private equity guys. Make sure they understand your business. And then people like me, I provide the fair balance between mission and fiduciary responsibility
Yeah. So while
and
yeah,
investment.
while it's great to have IFC, World Bank backed patient investors, you must have had various interesting experiences with VCs and Ps. Have you ever rejected a profitable opportunity because it conflicted with the purpose of the institution?
Yeah, exactly. I had individual investors with a lot of money saying that we like what you're going to do. Let me put money into your business. And when I do diligence, I find that his purpose is just to make money, and which is okay. I mean, that's what they should do. They want to make money. Otherwise, why would they put money in you? But the whole ethos of education did not exist. The conversations I had with this individual were strange. Like, how much money are you making? Now, if I remove these foreign teachers and I replace with these teachers, do you think you can make far bigger profit? How many schools can I open? As opposed to show me that you are actually delivering high quality education, because that's what I believe in. So yes, I've rejected that, and I've also once picked even wrong investors.
Who hasn't?
I have, I have, and I had to phase them out politely, painfully.
I
So
think
due diligence,
I think
yeah.
that's about the time when I met you 10 years ago.
Correct. You would have seen the scars. So,
Yeah,
yeah, so I tell people, when someone approaches you and you get very excited, oh my God, this PE from America or from where, from Singapore is looking, and they do due diligence and you open your entire kitchen, relax. Do due diligence on them too.
yeah.
And there are ways to do it, Nalin, on other people as well. Yeah.
So
I will bring the industries down towards my high school, grade 10, 11, and 12, and let them talk to my students for them to understand what a lot of schools are doing, but it's ad hoc. I want to institutionalize this. Every Tuesday, there's a talk with an industry specialist. And I would also want to institutionalize a robust internship program where my children can stop studying for a period of 3 months, for example. There are universities in the US that take 6 months out from the program and put kids into uh, industries. What if I can just take 2 or 3 months out and put them in such industries and businesses so they understand what's needed? What's stopping me? The examinations. I can't take away 3 months of curriculum time, right? So that's how I would redesign it.
is there something that is worth preserving in our current education system in our countries?
Yeah. I think let's be fair. I think the curriculum that we have put together has come from years and years of research by very clever people. Let's not diss all of these things. The curriculum, if you study, is very clear. At grade 1, this is the outcome. At grade 2, this should be the outcome. At grade 3, that should be the outcome. That's needed. Now, how you execute it, they leave it to the schools. And I think some of the things we can do, governments can do, is to relook at the entry point of universities, remove certain amount of curriculum time at the back end, and institutionalize the so-called 3 to 4 months internship, put in compulsory capstone projects where they have to go and solve social environmental issues, um, and put that into part of the curriculum and find a way to grade. And it's all about grading, right? People all want to hear marks. Well, if that's so be it. So be it. But get them to do these things. I give you one good example recently, Nalit. Singapore's top school, Raffles Institution,
Hmm.
sent their grade secondary four boys, which is grade 10, because they were not doing the O levels. They dropped the O levels. Now, because they dropped the O levels, kids now suddenly have more time. So there's no prep time, there's no exams. And we curated for those Raffles Institution boys, which is the top school in Singapore, by the way. That's where Lee Kuan Yew and other prime ministers came out. We curated a robust 21-day program for them to come to Indonesia, where they were exposed to environmental, social issues, politics, entrepreneurial opportunities. And they ended up with a Shark Tank type presentation. And these are very clever boys at the top percentage of Singapore. You know what they said? This was an eye opener. I did not realize what Indonesia was about, the entrepreneurial opportunities in Indonesia. They did not realize. And that's a country called Singapore, 1.5 hour, 20
Yeah,
minutes away.
absolutely.
So that's the exposure that schools must now focus on to help our students.
So, Jaspal, over the years, I have known you to be a grounded and a humble person, but still, I will ask you.
But blunt speaker, go ahead.
That's okay. It resonates with me. Yes. But for you and your team, it's been a 3 decades journey. Over these 3 decades, when you look back, if you have to distill it down to that one thing that you and your team are most proud about, what would that be?
Culture. Nalin, I say it again and again, culture. We have built within the organization a culture, and I tell you how painful it was to bring it to this level. We have built in the school consciously, systematically, a culture that is a very caring culture, a culture that if I can turn my back into a new project, there's a team behind that will pick whatever we discuss and execute it. A culture that is data driven and a culture that cares. It was a very painful pathway. And when people say, oh, build culture, it doesn't happen overnight. Number one, the founder, the board needs to set the example. If the culture of my company must be free of corruption, nepotism, and collusion, then I need to set the example. For example, my wife is a teacher. She has never stepped in my school. I could have given her a director's job and give her a fat salary. No way. A culture of care. During COVID, one of my investors jumped up and down and said that we are about to exit, but COVID has hit. Can we cut costs? And what's the highest cost in schools? Staffing. I said, we are not cutting any cost. The only one person who took a dollar salary was me. Over 1 year, I told the teachers, so there were 25, 26 town hall Zooms, Nalin, which I was involved in. I told the staff, no one's getting retrenched. No one is getting a pay cut. But I said, I know you're going to be stuck in your room. So we gave them free Spotify, free Netflix. We paid for the internet, we paid for the electricity bill. And in return, I said, give me your best online program because now it's school versus school. The auditorium, that 8-lane swimming pool is not going to make
Oh,
a difference. It's teachers versus teachers. And you know what happened during COVID? Our satisfaction rate jumps from 42 to 96% in a short period. 42 initially because everybody hated online anyway. While schools were shutting, my enrollment went up by 16.8%. And my valuation, my company went up much higher than that.
yes.
So what does it mean? Look after your staff. Lah.
Yeah, that's true.
Notice my luck, the Singaporean part. Look after your staff.
So
Culture.
true. So that's one of the mistakes a lot of edtechs went and made, and that's why they went bust. Education is not a quick business. It takes 10, 12 years to establish culture, reputation, and you succeed because of that. Now, as an entrepreneur, we all face multiple times. I mean, as many times that I've faced, when we feel this is an existential crisis, I think this is it. It won't go any further. Did you have any such moments other than COVID?
Oh, oh man, I'm telling you, I have more war wounds in me than you can imagine. We had picked a wrong partner who threw us out one day. We had picked a wrong landlord who locked the gates of the school and wanted equity. We had floods, COVID, Indonesian riots where students couldn't come, demonstration on streets where we couldn't send the kids to school. So we are war torn veterans.
I I feel you. I feel you completely as an entrepreneur. But I'm going to wrap this up with one last question. You are a speaker, and I hear you on social media and other forums, and you are asked a lot of questions. Is there one question that you wonder why people don't ask you?
Yeah, that question sits around conscience. I think a lot of successful businessmen and women neither talk about conscience nor ask about conscience. Now, conscience is this one voice in your head that is your biggest moral compass. That one element, what conscience is in this businessman that makes him do what he's supposed to do? There are many opportunities that come my way which I've turned away because it's just not right, even though I can make the shortest amount of money in the fastest way. Or worse still, Nalin, I can benefit, but there'll be people who may not know that I'm benefiting from their labor. What I call a quiet, just pay them a salary, but I'm really benefiting at the back end. Keep pressing them. It's not fair. So I think conscience is business. It's not very
Yes,
often
you're right.
talked about.
Just as we face multiple existential questions, we face multiple times in a journey where greed is an option, where a shortcut is an option, and we choose not to take them with at great pain. And there's no logical explanation for that except your
Yeah,
own conscience and value system. So,
correct.
for all our young learners, we've come to the end of this podcast. And young professionals, you should remember today's conversation reminds us that education is ultimately about doors. Some doors lead to universities, some lead to employment, some lead to entrepreneurship, leadership, social mobility, and high impact. But perhaps the most important door is the one inside a young person's mind. The moment when a child begins to believe, I belong in that room, I am capable of building that future. Jaspal Sidhu's contribution to society is rooted in making that belief available to more families. He took the personal experience of a humble background and converted it into an institutional mission. He has questioned why world class education should remain concentrated among the wealthy elite or in metropolitan centers. He has shown what affordability need not mean low aspiration, that scale need not mean impersonality, and that quality of a school is determined less by the grandeur of its buildings than by the quality of the relationships inside its classrooms. His journey also carries an important lesson for leaders. Meaningful innovation does not always begin by adding more. Sometimes it begins by removing what is unnecessary, protecting what is essential, and asking whom the existing system has unintentionally left outside. As education enters an age of AI, the challenge before us is not simply to make children more technologically capable, it is to make them more curious, courageous, compassionate, and confident, to prepare them not merely to compete for opportunities, but to create opportunities for others. Jaspal, thank you for reminding us that the true measure of an educational institution is not how exclusive its entrance is, but how many lives become more expansive because it exists. And perhaps the most fitting tribute to your family is this, or your father, as would more specifically. He spent his life opening doors for people. You have spent yours ensuring that millions more children believe they have the right to walk through them. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, Jasper.
Thank you very much. It's been a real privilege. I mean, thank you for having me.
Thank you.